So the Bears finished with the worst record in the NFL, and on top of that, they're not sure if Justin Fields is their guy. You might be thinking, well, it's just more doom and gloom for Chicago, right? You'd be wrong. For starters, with their worst record in the NFL, they're granted the first pick in this draft, and that gives them a great opportunity to improve their roster talent as they can either trade away Justin Fields, which you may be vehemently against. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it. Or you could trade back in the draft and shore up a lot of positions that are in need of upgrades, which is basically all of your positions, to be completely honest. Notice the one thing I left out, though, is just staying at number one and drafting Jalen Carter or Will Anderson or anyone like that. I don't like that move because they're not a Will Anderson away from having a legitimate defense. And in fact, they're not necessarily one player away from being a good positional group anywhere on this team. Their roster is so depleted because they tried to win when they didn't have a good enough team and they mortgaged their future on that. This offseason is almost a kind of second chance, if you will, on assembling the team, as they obviously have the number one overall pick. They still have Justin Fields, and they have a ton of money, as they have over $100 million in cap space, which they could be a bit hasty with again and probably run into some issues if they spend almost all of that money on a few superstars, but they could do a lot of work with just getting good value additions. So, as you can see, they have several options for various positions, and I'm really interested in what they do wide receiver wise because regardless of if it's Justin Fields or Bryce Young, they're going to need a lot of help on the wide receiver front. And I think beyond that, their offense is actually not bad because Cole Kmet's a solid tight end. They have good running backs. And yeah, their offensive line is not a strength necessarily, but it's actually not too big of a weakness either in my eyes because I think more of their sack issue is just Justin Fields holding onto the ball tremendously long, which isn't necessarily a dig at him. It can be a bit of a problem, but it is also an issue of the wide receivers not getting separation and him holding onto the ball for no one to get open. So I would really like to see DJ Chark with his deep threat ability pairing with Justin Fields' cannon for an arm and deep ball accuracy, or Bryce Young could do that as well. He could connect with DJ Chark. So I like that pairing. I also really like the idea of Jacoby Myers coming in and giving you a legitimate. He would be their number one option, but he's for years to come going to be a good two or three. Hopefully, that is something that they could be using as a building piece. And I don't mean to sound bleak with their defensive line, but it's really, really rough. PFF ranked them the second worst run defense in the NFL and the worst pressure unit also. So, what makes that even worse is they had Roquan Smith for about half of the year. So, those stats should probably be even a little worse than they actually are. If I'm the Bears, I play it entirely based on how the rest of the NFL views this draft. And if I can't get a king's ransom, For trading back, I am going to take Bryce Young, and the reason is I'm not sure if Justin Fields is the guy, and I'd rather take a stab at a number 1 overall pick at quarterback than I would maybe the 5th overall pick, which is what we might be picking with next year. And I think you're really in a good spot either way if you're Chicago, because if you do get a trade that's just undeniable, then you're going to be able to really get a lot of talent around Justin Fields. And if he can't succeed with a lot of talent, at that point, you realize he's not your guy. And if you draft young, though, that gives you 2 more years of a cheap quarterback on their rookie deal. So that gives you time to round out the edges of this draft. If they trade back, I would like Jackson Smith-Njigba or Jordan Addison in the first. Considering that Eberflus is a coach that's had a lot of success as a defensive coordinator, things aren't looking too bad for the Chicago Bears. And I think this offseason could really do a lot to make their future seem brighter. Be sure to let me know in the comments what you think of my evaluation, and please be sure to like and subscribe for more content too.